Well, at least Reed and Marcus are making friends at their signings. Lisa was a keynote speaker and kind of had a different effect on her audience.
I wouldn't say the whole audience. So I'm going to try to protect the guilty and innocent and figure out how I can tell the story without giving out too much information. So a while ago, I was asked to be a co-keynote speaker at an event somewhere. And I was sort of like the co-headliner with a more famous author. Let's call him Bob. And so when they asked me to do this, I was honored, but I was also like, ugh, I hate speaking. I mean, I do these things and they're kind of fun. There's beer, there's really cool people, but this was an official, like a big library event where I had to wear a nice dress and I had to be prepared, and as it turned out, I had to like drive several hours to go to meetings for this event, and when I did drive those several hours for these meetings, I had to go to these dinners to collaborate on what we would talk about, and there were several people involved, and when we were at these dinners, I noticed that I was the only person being responsible and taking notes, which is a really, really, really bad sign. You know, I am usually the screw-up in any situation. And when I'm like, hey, wait, what did somebody just say? And writing it down, it was pretty bad. And so the whole ordeal became this big, big, big problem. And I worked hours working on a speech, and I went over with the library director of what I was going to talk about. And my big thing was that I wanted at the library for the people to understand, the library patrons to understand what was involved in people in libraries and in bookstores when they purchased an ebook. And so my big thing with the speech was, you know, when you buy an ebook, it's the cost of an ebook shouldn't actually be that much less than a cost of a proper book. People tend to think that the cost difference is this massive thing. So my speech is really about that and explaining why ebooks cost so much in proportion to a real book. And, you know, I had hoped the speech was funny, but I had worked very, very hard. I drove a long way, and it was a big pain in my ass. And the author that I worked with didn't do crap. And I remember sitting at the dinner and like, his wife just said, oh, you'll be fine, you're hilarious. And I remember thinking that he didn't say one funny thing the whole time we were eating. And he didn't say one funny thing the whole night. And he didn't say one funny thing of value, and he was driving me nuts. But he was fine, he was totally decent. He was one of those people who spoke off the cuff and came unprepared, and that was cool. Let's call him Bob. So I went to this event, I gave my speech. My friend afterwards who was there said, you were fine, a little drunk. That's okay. But I was really just sort of over it at that point. And then afterwards, as I was signing books, an elderly woman came up to me and she said, I have to use an e-reader. I have a degenerative eye disease and I need to be able to increase the font size. And so I said, well, I'm not trying to eradicate e-readers. I was just trying to explain to people that I want them to make a considered decision when they buy ebooks. And she's like, I have to use an e-reader. And so I explained to her again that I wasn't trying to get rid of ebooks and that I understood her predicament and that I didn't have a problem with it. And she's like, your speech was very negative. And I was making some jokes, yes, but more about libraries than e-readers. I suggested libraries have showers and stuff like that, but she was really, she would not go away. And nobody was helping me. I'm signing books and this woman just standing there like saying, you were very negative. And I like to be nice to senior citizens. And this was the meanest I had ever been to an older person, and I was finally looked at her and said, go away! And so when the whole evening was over, to my fellow author and complained. I'm like, oh my God, this old lady wouldn't leave me alone. And he's like, oh yeah, I know all about her. And then because I do like to complain, I went up to this bookseller who knows both me and Bob, the author, and I'm like, this lady, she was awful. She just like was a tyrant. She would not leave me alone. He's like, oh yeah, that's Bob's mom. I don't like Bob.
Lisa got dressed up for her event. Tom sometimes has difficulty knowing where to wear his boxer shorts.
My
He wore them when we roomed together.
Where's Penny?
I think she ran away.
Penny gave me boxer shorts at a conference. I had to wear them at the panel over my jeans. That's all I have to say about that.
No backstory?
Huh?
No backstory to
No,
that?
I don't. It's too traumatic. That's all I want to say. Let's move along.
Okay, well, how about you have friends who give you gifts at events too? Stuffed dogs.
I do. Yes. Libby Hellman gave me. I have a bunch of hound dogs at home. I have three hounds. I have a basset hound, a bloodhound, and a basset bloodhound mix. I didn't make that up. I'm just spacing out a little bit. They all sleep in the same bed with me and my wife. And a couple years ago, when Libby was our co-MC, she gave me a stuffed basset hound to keep me company. And it was, if you all remember that, it was the year Krista was here, Krista Faust, who brought her dog Butch. Butch got very attracted to my make-believe stuffed basset hound. And more traumatized about that. But not nearly as traumatized as the stuffed basset hound, who now resides in the Jordan residence. I can't tell, but I think it has like a permanent wince on it.
But Butch has a permanent smile.
But Tom, I think that you need to tell the audience why you allowed that to go on.
Because Krista scares me. I didn't want to get hurt physically or emotionally.
Yeah, take a number, Schreck.
I just,
Was that the year you were trying to give away the most hideous dog of all time? You had Schreck the whole night at the after party. We're all hanging around, and every time I would pass by Schreck, I'd hear something, just a little snatch of conversation, like, well, you know, missing an eye, but there's a slight diarrhea issue. So like the fifth time I stopped, like, are you okay? I don't know if he's talking about himself. No, he has found somehow the most cursed dog in the universe. It had one leg and...
I used to write a blog, and there was a section on it called the Duffy Dog of the Week. Duffy is the character in my books, and so there was a dog who was looking to win some sort of contest that was on a calendar, and the dog was blind. It wasn't the most attractive dog,
But it was tell.
It was, and Sakey, the bastard that he was, making fun of the poor helpless animal was something he could take joy in.
Well, Sean wasn't there.
Yeah, God rest his soul.
Sometimes just getting to the events is a traumatic experience, and Reed took a driving tour, and he informed me that Texas is a very big state.
Yeah, I know the story. You don't even have to tell me more. I did a tour of Texas with Jim Fusilli and S.J. Roseanne. And I did most of the... that's, you know, a rabbi, a priest, and Jim Fusilli.
Favorite mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? Hey.
She a good surprise. Bravo for standing up and doing that. Reed just thought you were twitching.
Go ahead.
So we were trying. I mean, if you don't realize, when Texans say, "Oh, it's just over yonder," it's 8 hours. It's just down the block. You don't say that to a New Yorker because New Yorkers think it's just down the block. Well, people, oh, don't worry, Austin, Houston, and Dallas are close. Oh yeah, they're close. So by the third city, we were so punchy that Jim Fusilli and I engaged in a discussion/argument over who was the best-looking man in crime fiction. And S.J. Roseanne is sitting, S.J's very short, so she's sitting between the back seat and the bucket seat with her jaw. like her eyes are wide and her jaw's on the floor. And Jim says to me, Reed, I'm really hurt by the fact that you have not mentioned my name in this discussion. I go, well, Jim, I find you enormously attractive. And he said, well, that's strange. Most people just find me enormous. And S.J. was like, the rest of the ride to Houston was just like, that, when you're in it, it's like, are we there yet? And Jim, I let Jim be the most attractive man in fiction.
But this isn't the only time that Reed's had an argument of that magnitude.
No.
And the other one was with his wife.
Yes. Yeah. Before Las Vegas BoucherCon, I had been scheduled to play golf in Las Vegas with Steve Hamilton. And my wife had never met Steve, but loves his books because she's from Michigan, like Steve is, and her family is from the Upper Peninsula, like Steve's, and so she felt this kind of kinship with Steve, and she'd read his books, listened to his books, and, if you don't know, Steve is one of the nicest people in crime fiction, and so my wife Roseanne had never met him, so I said, I'm going to play golf with Steve tomorrow. By the way, he kicked my ass. And I said, would you like me to get an autographed book? She said, no, you don't have to do that, but, I have to say this. She said, Steve is really ugly. I said, wait a second. Wait, I don't know how I wind up having these arguments. I go, Steve Hamilton is not ugly. I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, no, he really is, And I said, look, maybe you don't like his hair. Some people find his hair kind of funky, but I like any hair. So, I'm not going to argue about that. So, as married couples will do, this degenerated into a screaming fight. So that both of our children came running downstairs and witnessed, he isn't bad looking, he's ugly. I mean, we were literally screaming. I said, pardon my French, I said, get the fucking book and show me the picture. So she brings me the audio book, and she shows me the picture, and it's the guy who narrates. I said, you're right, he is ugly. That's not Steve. So Steve Hamilton almost caused him a happily married couple.
We've already heard a couple stories about fans getting extremely passionate about the
Serial killer.
Yes. Lisa has some fans who write to her who are extremely passionate.
Fans.
Fans.
Okay. Well, I mean, like a lot of us, I'm open to getting emails. And I'm pretty cool with it in many ways. So, this is fan mail. Hello. I just finished reading the Spellman Files, and I'd like to pass along some thoughts. I think you have a terrific sense of humor, you're very imaginative, and you have a real gift for developing a storyline and then sending it off into left field. On the other hand, the members of the Spellman family take the fun out of dysfunctional. I got so fed up with them harassing each other and committing crimes against one another that I stopped caring about what happened to them about halfway through the book. My only positive thought about the Spellmans was that they were living in a hell of their own making, so there was some justice. The more I read about the Spellmans, the easier it became for me to understand why some people sometimes murder their family and then commit suicide. The Spellmans make it seem like the only escape. As much as I enjoy your wit and talent, I can't stand the thought of reading any more about the Spellman family. I realize that this book has gotten a lot of rave reviews, and you deserve many of them. However, I find it very sad that so many people think it's hilarious to read about family members who seem to devote half their time trying to find new ways to control and abuse each other, and the other half trying to evade the attacks of all the others. I wish you lots of success. If you do a book in the future that doesn't involve the Spellman family, I'd be interested in it. Sincerely, I won't give you her name.
Sincerely, Bob.
No, it's Bob's wife.
Bob's mom.
But sometimes when people spend a lot of money on your books, they also
Yeah, okay.
have thoughts.
Yes. Being a senior citizen, I get most of my books from yard sales and then share them with other old people. Found your book, Curse of the Spellmans. What a waste of 50 cents. Managed to make it to page 70 and couldn't take it anymore. This book is supposed to be funny? Lady, your characters make us rednecks look like upper echelon. Why someone would pay $14 for this book is beyond me. I mean, I would like to read her sign off. She's from Hawk Pride Mountain, Alabama. But I have to say that, like, I remember reading for a while, like, a bunch of authors when the whole Amazon thing happened and they were getting really mad about their reviews. I spent all of my last tour reading bad reviews. Like, I didn't do any of my actual readings. I just read bad reviews, so thank God for them. Because I had nothing. I did turn a few people off of my books, but at least I had something to do at readings.